Yeah, 100%. Okay, today, here's what we're gonna talk about. It's our next section we're going into, right? We just took a test. We're gonna look at test scores on Monday when everyone's here. But basically what we're gonna be looking at is, on the next section, is now that you've bought your vehicle, right? We have that section about buying and purchasing a vehicle for the first time, looking at gas mileage, fuel efficiency, all that, repairs. Now you're gonna take a trip. And we're gonna look at, the actual cost of taking trips to places. So like flight costs, hotel costs. We're gonna look at how to look at an old school map or atlas. We're gonna look at how to use GPS correctly. There's just little things that people don't know, that there's a ton of math that's involved. So the big thing that we're gonna start in the very beginning, it's only the first section, we're gonna look at old school maps. So we're gonna look at an atlas, we're gonna look at an actual road map, and we're going to look at, the symbols that are on it and talk about, the math that's involved in the actual numbers that they're providing you. So the big thing about a map is just knowing the legend or key in the corner, legend or key, whatever they call it. It gives you a sense of scale for how big something is. And so you can figure out distances to places, and we're going to look at all that good stuff and talk about the math that's involved there. So that'll be our first idea. So the big thing is, whatever map you're looking at, usually it's a flat, two-dimensional surface. They're going to have, towns on there with dots. If it's a bigger city, they'll have a blob that's usually a different color. They'll have roads that are all connecting to it and all that good stuff. And they'll have railroad tracks that are on it. And so they'll show you like ideas. And the legend will tell you what you're looking at. So like, cities are this color and towns are this, and railroad tracks have this symbol, and if it's a national park, whatever national parks are, it's usually a shaded thing. And so they tell you all the items that you need if there's an airport or anything. But some people just aren't used to seeing an old school map. They don't know how to look at it, how to orient it. If they're in the city, they don't know which direction to face, that type of thing. That's where a compass comes in handy. So when you have a compass, you can turn the map so you know exactly which direction you're facing and kind of reorient yourself. It's one of those things that a lot of people just don't get the idea behind it. And so I'm gonna see if I can get my hands on a couple old school compasses so we can actually look at how to orient a compass a little bit. I think that's still a skill set people need to know, a survival skill. But that's something we're going to look at. Obviously, we're going to look at electronic versions, because obviously we have technology at our hands. We have phones, and we have Chromebooks, and we have other things that electronically, like, we can do some things a little bit smarter than just old school paper. But I think it's still important that we look at those things and know how to do it. But yeah, there's some actual math that's involved. So we're going to see some serious stuff in the next couple days. The first day on Monday will be an easy day, and it'll be just, let's look at an old school map. Let's get the ideas that are on the map, and then we'll call it a day. Tuesday next week, we'll do some serious calculations, finding actual raw distance. Because one of the things that people don't understand is, like, when you're looking at just not a map, but maybe a globe, right? And so this is something that just a lot of people don't understand. So let's say I'm drawing a terrible picture. All right, here's Europe, and all right, so this is Europe, and there's Italy, and you have Africa down here, and here's Africa. All right, and the idea is that let's just talk about like Russia, right? Russia's like a fourth away around the globe. If you think in terms of mileage, it's like 6,000 miles or some wild number, and when you see it on a map, it doesn't look impressive. Like, you're like, oh, here's some roads, here's Ukraine and stuff. Yeah, but compared to the U.S., you're traveling across the U.S. like 4 times to get across to Russia. And a lot of it's not even habitable. It's just, like, there's a huge chunk around Chernobyl that you can't even step because it's too contaminated with radiation. And there's parts where there's just no roads. It's not even been explored. There's parts of Russia that, the Russian government, back in the early 50s and earlier, they would just send people as exiled. Like, you're banished to this area of the country to survive on your own.
So if you go there, you're either going to find a secret town of people, or seriously, a whole bunch of dead bones.
Yeah, seriously. There's just not a lot, and it's so vast that people just don't get that sense of scale. Like if you draw the U.S. fits here, So then you still have, a couple more USs you can fit in there. It's just big. And people don't get that. So like when you look at a map, the scale and the legend is huge. You gotta get a sense for like, how big of like distances are we talking? Like maybe this map covers 20, 30 miles across. Well, now you got a sense for like, maybe this is Garner and that's Mason City. Well, that's a bigger distance than you think it is. So just kind of keep that in mind. So that's something that when we look at scales, it's important to really get a sense for like comparing to something that you understand. Like I always do that. Like when I'm looking at distance, I'm like, okay, this is the distance from like Ventura to Garner, and I just put that in my head. So I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. I can get a sense for how much time it takes me to travel. It's just something like when you look at a bigger globe, it's hard to see that. So yeah, just one of those things that I want you to be aware of. I think it's important for survival purposes, but for math purposes, we take a look at stuff like that. So that'll be on Monday. Questions with kind of the idea what we're doing the next couple days in here. This unit is a lot of fun. A lot of the other classes really like this unit. Other than like I like the car unit when you're looking at cars because I love buying cars. But this unit's actually practical. How much are hotels? Where can you book them? What are websites you could go to that will give you good deals? Like we look at stuff that you can use later on. That are kind of nice when you're going to go on vacation at some point when the pandemic's over and you can actually travel again, like little things like that. And it's just like this is kind of a fun unit when we get into it. But is there any questions before we get finished up here? All right, I'm going to turn you loose. That's it. That's all I got today.